Mr. Chairman, you are now live.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to this evening's meeting for the Gig Harbor Fire Medic 1 Board of Commissioners, Fire District 5. If you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
I'll move that we approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Urvina,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayden,
Yes.
Commissioner Fleming,
Yes.
Chairman Enzi.
Yes. Okay, now special moment this time. We have a special recognition for one of our firefighters. Nick, would you like to take over?
Good evening. I'd like to invite Fred Leopold and Larry Recker up to the front from the local VFW post.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
It's my honor, not as only the commander of the VFW post here in Gig Harbor, but also as a retired firefighter from Gig Harbor. I'd like to bring up Carissa Wagner. She's receiving this award as the Veterans of Foreign War 2025 Firefighter of the Year.
You don't want to give a speech? I'm kidding. But stay up here real quick. Chief, if you could come up and join us for a picture. Larry and Fred, real quick, we'll get a picture of the chief. And then Melissa would like to get a picture with whoever is here in attendance out at our old #1 fire engine. And then we'll do that right after this.
Carissa, if I may, I want to thank you for your service, not only to our fire department, but also your service as a veteran and as active duty with reserves. It shows a lot about who you are and where your importance lies in regards to service to your community and to your country. So thank you so much.
With the picture up front. So if you want to get maybe out some family, get a picture with the crew. Your dance to get out. You don't want the rest of it.
Commissioner absences, anything coming up in the future? Communications? Under approval of minutes from the April 28, 26 Commissioners meeting, we need to make a change prior to approving them. Prior to the approval of the minutes from the 4/28/26 meeting, we need to make a note of a revision in the public comment section. It should read, estimated 2026 capital expenditures are approximately $6 million. It was in the minutes, it read 12 to 13. That is not correct. It was 6 million. The 12 to 13 million was in reference to the Capital Replacement Reserve Fund. So need to make note of that change.
So with that change, I would move to approve the minutes from the April 28th, 2026 Commissioners meeting.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ervina,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayden,
Yes.
Commissioner Fleming,
Yes.
Chairman Enzi.
Yes. Accounts payable and payroll approvals.
I'll move that we approve accounts payable checks 3554 through 3593, 3606 through 3649, payroll checks 3594 through 3605, along with ACH payroll transfers as outlined in the agenda, for a grand total of $4,044,495.12.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ervina,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayden,
Yes.
Commissioner Fleming,
Yes.
Chairman Enzi.
Yes. Local 3390, I have heard nothing from the local. Anything in the audience on a local member being in the audience? Okay. No report. Chief's reports.
All right. Anybody? All right. So I'll just do mine. I forgot to ask them before, obviously. So since last meeting on April 30th, I did a Harbor Rising, Gig Harbor City employees. It was a leadership day for their employees. We also have a leadership consultant that is here that is helping our prevention team. So I'll be meeting with them tonight after this meeting. Tomorrow, I can't remember if I told you I've been appointed to the Tacoma Narrows Airport Commission by the county. So tomorrow night will be my first Airport Commission meeting, and I'll be attending that. Next Thursday, I leave for Kennewick to speak at the IFF 7th District New Member Conference. And since it's halfway to Boise, I'm going to continue on the next day, spend a long weekend at with my parents in Boise, which means at the next board meeting, I will be remote and coming back home the next night, the next day, which will be Scott Booth's retirement celebration, just to remind you, at 3:00 on May 27th. Coming in the next couple meetings on June 9th, we'll be bringing you the capital presentation. So we're preparing that to go over. If you haven't heard, our new water tender did arrive. I haven't got to see it, but I've heard it looks nice. It's down at the shop, and we'll be doing training and putting that into service pretty soon. And last but not least, I think you saw probably my emails, announcement of Chief Oldenburg's retirement next year. And then the posting of that job happened last night. So that posting will be out, I can't remember, through June, and we'll start that process and hopefully have somebody here to have some overlap time before Chief Oldenburg leaves. That's all I have for my reports.
Anything from these guys?
They said no.
They know what they've been doing all week.
I know, that's what I was
gonna
going to
do
say.
the water tender, but he stole it.
Okay, I have one thing, I guess. The training division, Division Chief Corrigan, Lieutenant Haas, and Lieutenant Ripple on Monday moved into the training support building. So their office is officially down there. And I was on a Teams call with them this afternoon, and they were, at least virtually, they were in their office. Yeah. So I want to let you know that.
I have to say, I actually saw the tender, I think probably heading to it, and I felt pretty proud of myself because I says, gee, that looks like a new water tender. And I was right. Standing committee reports, there is nothing new for that. Negotiations are still ongoing, so there's nothing new. Chairman's report, I have just one quick. Commissioner Ervina and myself attended the annual spring conference for the Washington State commissioners conference at Clearwater. And even though I've been going over those for quite a while, it never fails that you always pick up something new from them. And so there's always a little new tidbit you can pick up from these things, plus reacquainting with other commissioners and other fire people from districts there. So it was a good meeting. 2022 bond update.
So Chief Johnson is out on some medical procedures. So he sent me this report. In essence, all the block work is done down at the tower. The masons are now done. They're pouring a cap on the very top in the next couple of days, and all the concrete work and all the CMU work will be done. So really now it's starting to button it up. It's putting the shutters on and the windows. They got fire blast is still working to get all the props in. They're putting the tiles up now throughout there. So it's getting really close. I hope so, because we got the ribbon cutting on June 24th. Site cleanup has already started. All the trades are cleaning up everything and getting it out. So it's coming to an end right now. Station 51, the stem walls, shear walls, and columns are being prepared and poured this week. So you'll start seeing upward movement if you drive by there. Utility work continues on the north side. They're doing drains that are being placed by the apparatus bay. And then we're also putting up our own cameras. We put cameras up here and on all of our sites to watch over the work. Station 58 and 59, we've had a couple meetings already of the committee to kick that project off. They're working on the initial plans, what they want, trying to finalize the rooms that they want. They're looking at the site surveys of both locations, and so those projects are moving forward. That's all we have for the bond right now.
Thank you. I don't see anything under old business. New business, Chief Langwell.
Good evening. So I'd like to take a few moments here to brief you on our ladder truck research project that we have now wrapped and finished in this stage. But I'd like to ask Lieutenant Jorgensen to come join me, because he's our subject matter expert on the truck side. So he's going to sit next to Chief Booth. I was going to make you sit there, but I figured that was a little uncomfortable. So I'll stand for, as we go, I'll stand for any questions you have. And if there's a more technical, operational to the ladder truck itself specific question, I'll have Scott touch base on that. He's going to be our subject matter expert. So I sent this report to the commissioners yesterday evening. We're certainly not going to go through all 67 pages of it here, but I do want to provide a relatively high level look at kind of how we got here and where we ended and where we're going. So just as a little bit of a trip down memory lane, we started this project in earnest last winter, just after the turn of the year. So the January, February of 2025, I met with Lieutenant Jorgensen, who's the chair of our ladder truck research committee. We put together and solicited for input on who wanted to be on the committee. And we generated a committee, started the work last January, February. And so I do want to just take a quick moment to recognize the people that were on the committee, because the vast majority of the work was done by Lieutenant Jorgensen and that committee. I was certainly engaged in the process at a high level, but the vast majority of the functional work that happened in this document was done by this team. So I wanted to recognize them. Battalion Chief Noah Falk was in the room. He's out with Carissa. He's Carissa's battalion chief. So Battalion Chief Noah Falk, Division Chief Scott Corrigan, Lieutenant Scott Jorgensen, Lieutenant Tony Carr, Lieutenant Andy Cochran, driver operator Ryan Shervanek, and then lead mechanic Brad Scavlin. So that was the group of folks that really dug into this, and a handful of them will continue on as we progress through the process. So again, we started in 2025. Speaking from my limited experience, I don't have any experience going through a research project. So while I thought maybe we had a timeline in my head on how long it would take, I didn't really know. And so it was a lot of work, pretty heavy lift. And so after about 16 months, we're to the space we're in today. We broke the ladder truck document into 3 phases. The first phase was, what do we have now in our current fleet? recognizing we know we don't have a ladder truck, but what kind of capabilities do we have in our current fleet? Where is there a operational gap in the community as far as the fire department goes, and could a ladder truck potentially fill some of that gap? Phase 2 was to evaluate different ladder truck capabilities. We'll talk about that in a second, but we evaluated 3 primary platforms, lowercase p. I always tell people not uppercase p, but lowercase. And then we did some quantitative and real world drive time to try and evaluate those different ladder trucks and how it would apply to the service gap that we identified within our jurisdiction. And then phase 3 is a little bit of some work on a deployment model, recognizing that the plan can shift over time as the community changes. But if we were going to deploy one today, how would we do it? So we certainly the committee identified in phase 1 that we do have a service gap that we think could be filled by the addition of a ladder company in the district. As the commission knows, we rely right now on neighboring agencies with aerial apparatus through either automatic aid with Tacoma Fire or mutual aid with our other mutual aid partners, West Pierce, South Kitsap. But we don't have our own. Some of those operational limitations included reduced upper floor rescue capability, no aerial master stream above the top of our Type 1 engine, limited roof access, no elevated lighting platform on a frontline piece of apparatus. We do have a elevated lighting platform on the rescue and the air truck, but they're not very elevated and they're not a frontline staffed apparatus. And limited technical rescue options when we're going over the edge of an embankment in the rope rescue scenario or confined space. The committee identified that it would enhance firefighter safety by allowing operations from safer elevated platforms. Lieutenant Jorgens and I spent a lot of time talking about we don't usually say always and never in the fire service, but nearly always it is going to be safer for our firefighters to operate from a fixed elevated platform as opposed to a ground ladder that has the opportunity to move and shift and slide and have to be tended. And so the ladder truck enhances our firefighter safety from that perspective, improves rescue, ventilation, and fire attack capabilities, reduces resilience on mutual and automatic aid, and supports community risk, and may improve our WSRB rating. We've spent a lot of time talking about WSRB here over the last couple of years, and while it's difficult to know exactly how it impacts our WSRB rating, we do know with some relative certainty that it would impact it in a positive nature, because we're going from, if we choose to purchase a ladder truck, we're going to go from 0 to more than 0. So we know that it's going to enhance that for sure. So the committee did evaluate, once we identified the gap that we had in our service area, and what kind of that helped drive the type of ladder truck that would fill the majority of the gap. So we evaluated 3 primary ladder truck options: the rear mounted bucket, sometimes called a tower, rear mounted straight stick, and the tractor drawn aerial, or TDA. So if you hear me say tiller or TDA, that's what I'm referring to as the tractor drawn aerial. And so there's a significant amount of of criteria we used in phase 2 to evaluate those ladder trucks. And then we did some real world drive time with ladder 1 from Tacoma, their tractor drawn aerial. And so the committee identified 3 primary areas that were the most important for us to capture in an overall ranking, and weighted those heavier than other areas. But maneuverability, and that includes just maneuverability of the actual truck relative to the other trucks in the categories, but also just throughout the jurisdiction. We have a jurisdiction that requires a certain amount of flexibility in our ability to get from point A to point B. It's not the typical urban environment with gridded street systems and multiple lane roads. We have, I think when we did the standard of cover several years ago, the consultant used the word meandering was the word choice, I think. So we have lots of meandering roads. And so we definitely put some weight, the committee put weight in maneuverability and access in our district, storage capacity, and operational flexibility. When we finished that process in phase 2, we landed on a ranking of the number 1, tractor drawn aerial, and 2, the rear mounted straight stick, 3, the rear mounted bucket. The committee doesn't recommend we move forward with really any effort and energy into the rear mounted bucket because of its, compared to the other two, because of its lack of maneuverability. It's really, really big, really, really heavy, and probably doesn't fit the needs of the organization. Would it make us better than we are today from an elevated master stream perspective? Certainly. But is it better than the other two options? No, we don't think that it is. So while we still want to evaluate the rear mounted straight stick and the tractor drawn aerial, we don't think that the rear mounted bucket's a good way for us to go moving forward. We did spend some time driving with Tacoma Fire, and I'm going to ask Lieutenant Jorgensen to touch on that a little bit here in a moment. But I don't want to skip this part and not mention just a public thank you to Deputy Chief Gil Barthay with Tacoma Fire. He was great to work with in setting up some time for Tacoma Fire to come out and spend a couple hours with us driving around town with one of their ladder trucks in the city of Tacoma. So thank you to Chief Barthay for allowing that to happen. We are going to spend another couple hours with South Kitsap here coming up. They have a rear-mounted straight stick, and so we're going to do the same driving course with them, so we can evaluate both of them on our streets just to decide how we want to navigate. The company that came out and drove with the tiller does have extensive experience on their rear-mounted straight stick in Tacoma. Commissioner Fleming knows this, but Tacoma has all of those platforms we talked about in the city, and their ladder company operators have experience on all of them. So they were able to provide, even though they were in the tractor drawn aerial, they were definitely able to provide some context for how the rear-mounted straight stick in the bucket would operate in our jurisdiction. So we worked through the process in phase 2 and identified the tractor drawn aerial as the preferred option. So maybe Scott, if you could just touch on kind of a little bit of from a high level on the committee's time spent with ladder 1 and how that worked for them, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Chief Langlow. Thank you to Tacoma Fire for allowing us to do that. It was extremely beneficial when it came to being able to kind of quantify our thought process for our jurisdiction and driving around. We have quite a few pretty tight corners, tight streets, tight neighborhoods. And through the majority of our district, to Chief Langlow's point, we don't have the double roads, very few of them. So that was kind of a big portion of, no matter what ladder truck we get, it can be the top ladder truck there is out there, but if it can't get to the emergencies quickly and effectively, then it's probably not going to be very beneficial to our citizens and to our firefighters. We created a road course of going from north to south, or excuse me, south to north, trying to identify some different target hazards that we have when it comes to being able to get a ladder truck into some high value properties and neighborhoods and commercial structures, and allowed them to drive through the district and be able to see what they could and could not do. We were not too surprised that the tiller ladder truck was able to make all the corners and turns and was able to access the route that we had. Tony Carr, Lieutenant Carr, was our member that drove with them and was able to provide a report that's in the 67 pages. And part of that was their experience driving the different types of ladder trucks, and that going through and as they were driving, just making suggestions like, yeah, bucket might not make that turn or be able to make this access. They're going to have to come in a completely different way. Once again, I think a ladder truck will be better than no ladder truck. It just might take a little bit longer, be a little bit more difficult depending on what ladder truck the department chooses to go to if we go down that road.
Great. Thanks, Scott. So phase 1 and phase 2, do we have a service gap? Yeah, we believe we do. Do we think a ladder truck would fill the gap? We do think it would significantly improve our service delivery to the community. We think that a tractor drawn aerial is the #1 choice, and then a rear mounted straight stick is a really, really good option that could be where we land too. So as we navigate through our next stages in the process, which I'll talk about here in a second, that's kind of where we're at with on the phase 1 and the phase 2. The next phase was, if we had one, where would we put it and how would we use it? And so the committee worked through the process, and you saw it in the report, but the committee brought forth a recommendation to me that I brought to the command staff that it would be located at Station 51, that we would deploy it out of Station 51. I think I'm confident that the research document does a good job in kind of identifying why we believe the several reasons why we believe that is the best place for it to be housed. I think two things I would highlight is its access to State Route 16 both directions and its geographical location right in the middle of the fire department, which is also right in the middle. We have on both sides of Station 51, right in the middle of the urban growth area where the balance of our commercial structures reside, right, or in that core of the district on both sides of Station 51. So we're recommending it at Station 51. One of the things I want to highlight in our deployment model is the recommendation includes that it's a Quint apparatus. And so what a Quint is, for those that don't have fire service experience, is it will have an onboard water tank with approximately 300 gallons of onboard of water in its water tank. Just for context, our current Type 1 engines have is 750. You get into the ladder truck world, and the ladder truck, if you want to make it a hybrid, you have to kind of give a little to get both the storage capability, the elevated platform, and the water. So it will have a fire pump. It will have 300-ish gallons of water, depending on the specifications. And the primary reason for that is that I brought forward to the committee and we discussed is the recommendation operationally is that it would take place of one of our Type 1 engines. So in the example that we give or that we talk about in the document, so engine 51 when we open, it would not be called engine 51 anymore. It would be called ladder 51. I got to get my truck and ladder nomenclature. Chief Oldenburg's like, oh gosh. So ladder 51, and it would continue to operate likely continue to operate very similarly to how engine 51 operates in the way that it deploys, but it would run out of Station 51. And because it has pre-connected hose lines and some amount of supply line and water, it can operate first in at a residential structure fire, just like our Type 1 engine. So that was really important to me. And then the committee too, that we did our best to not reduce service to the community. If we wanted to be in the business of having an independently operating ladder truck, it's likely that it would take somewhere between 20 to 24 employees that we would need to hire to put that in service. And that's, while that's possible, and that could be something we move to down the line, that's a significant undertaking and probably not something that puts a ladder truck in our service delivery model for longer than a decade, if not longer. So Station 51 with the Quint is where we're going to land, where we'd like to land. Can function as both an engine company and a ladder company from that perspective. And it would continue to run medical calls. It would continue to run the calls that engine 51 runs. We'll definitely spend some time evaluating how that impacts the ladder truck itself, if that's the direction we go, on making sure that we don't use the ladder truck in balance to the other engine companies. We got to be, tactical and purposeful about that, which we will do, but we have time to kind of work through that process. But it will continue to operate mostly as an engine, most like an engine company in our district. I think so. That's on the Station 51. On the Station 51 piece, that's kind of the reason we would like it to go to Station 51. Now, where do we go from here? What I recommended to the command staff was that we move forward with the specification process of what the ladder truck might look like more specifically to Gig Harbor. And so I'd like to spend some time with Lieutenant Jorgensen and Chief Peterson on that process. And they're gonna drive that. It doesn't mean that we are gonna purchase the ladder truck with absolution. It's a significant financial addition to the organization, as you'll see in the report. And so that's the other piece that Chief Oldenburg and I are going to spend a significant amount of time on with the finance team on. If we did this, how would we want to finance it, right? And I don't mean finance from like make a payment, but how do we want to pay for the apparatus? We have a couple different options that we can look at in the system. We just have to kind of suss those out and vet those out and see how it fits into our long-term capital plan, how it affects our other apparatus and their replacement schedule. How does the bond impact our ability to potentially finance the piece of apparatus? So we have to work through those pieces. We have to I'm advocating that we allow some time with Station 58 and 59 to see what those projects come in at. We certainly have to, prioritize, or I'm advocating that we prioritize those projects over the top of the addition of a ladder truck. So Chief Oldenburg and I and the team are going to spend a lot of time on the finance side. I'd like to cut Lieutenant Jorgensen and Chief Peterson loose on the spec side, because I think those processes can run concurrently to one another and not hold one another up, right? If I said, hey, Lieutenant Jorgensen, let's wait until we spend some time on the finance side, we could be a couple months down the road, and we know that a spec process is going to take several months to get that process going. So I think the work can happen concurrently, and then we can get to the crossroads, I suppose, together and be able to time it right and move forward. So we'll continue to do that on the finance piece while they continue to work on the specification piece of what the ladder truck would look like. So in closing, again, I want to thank the committee for their work putting this together. It was a tremendous amount of work that they did, and I'm very thankful for you and the committee on working on that. And I'd stand for any questions. Both Scott and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the report.
One question for me. If I remember right when I read it, the ladder truck would require at a minimum 4 firefighters. No, is that wrong?
So the recommendation, a fully staffed ladder truck would be 4.
Okay.
We are very comfortable with it operating with 3.
Okay.
So we wouldn't have to make an increase in minimum staffing from today's model to put the truck in service. We would, what it talks about in the report though, is that essentially like the first available above minimum, we would dedicate to the ladder company to make 4, because that's what we really would like it to be, is 4.
Okay.
And there's definitely some task and tactical and strategic value in doing that. But our neighbors operate with a minimum of 3 on their ladder trucks. We're comfortable operating with 3 too. We would like it to get to 4, kind of in that +1 model, but we don't think that it needs to hold up the in-service.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if I have a question, but a couple comments. First off, I know I talked to Lieutenant Jorgensen. I think when there was an original draft of this back in the fall, winter at some point, and I complimented him in person about it, and I will compliment him and the rest of the team now as well, because I think this is really well written. And I don't know this, but I suspect that when most departments start down this road that haven't had this type of apparatus before, I don't know that they put this level of energy, effort, detail into a report like this. So well done to everybody that was involved in this. I think it's just writing 67 pages in general is not easy as someone who writes for a living. So good job. Thing that sort of crossed my mind when you think about, and you've indicated that there's kind of 2 options where there's one that might be more preferred, but one that we can totally live with, it sounds like, and make it work. As we move down the road of kind of justifying one over the other, have we reached out? First thing that came to my mind is like Peninsula School District and Pierce Transit drive around in large, vehicles, and have probably kind of gone through a lot of the, how do we get these big trucks into tight areas around the community, school district in particular? And have we considered kind of, I don't know if partnering is the right word, or reaching out to them of, hey, do you have areas that are challenging that you can't get into? And then if we do another demo, for example, with a TDA, and we say, Pierce Transit can't get into this area, Peninsula School District can't get into this area, a TDA could get into this area. Have we considered anything like along those lines at all?
I think not specifically with Pierce Transit or the school district. I think those are good things for us to discuss at the committee level. I do know that we have spent a significant amount of time talking with other fire departments that have their version of the Pierce Transit bus, right? Like the rear mounted straight stick that is fixed axle and is like not the bendy truck, I guess the other word to call it, the bendy truck. And so we have spent some time with them. And I think when South Kitsap comes out and we can evaluate their apparatus on that road course, we're gonna generate some opinion and then some actual information from that to decide how we think we can navigate through that. The Tacoma truck operators that were out here, again, we're confident that the ladder truck the rear mounted straight stick could do the majority of what we would want it to do, but it's not going to be as effective as a tractor drawn aerial. There's definitely a sense, and Scott, you can jump in here too, in the current fire service that would say like the tractor drawn aerial can go everywhere a fire engine can go plus, just because of its ability to articulate. And so that's a general statement, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that it's exactly correct, but that does definitely provide the most reliable option.
And then last question, I mean, given the documentation about storage capacity, is there any thought put into, and this may be way down the line, but you mentioned that we have a technical rescue truck and tractor drawn aerial has a huge amount of compartment space. Could you kind of supplement that and then no longer have to cross staff that and essentially have a TDA do the work of what Rescue 58 does now to some degree?
Yeah, to some degree from the apparatus perspective, those discussions are actively happening on what we think is the best landing place for how the ladder and the rescue kind of integrate together in their discipline and in their ability to carry equipment. One thing I did want to mention that I didn't talk about earlier that definitely is on our radar, and we've been working with Lieutenant Jorgensen primarily. We've been working with Chief Westcott, that we're cognizant on is weight, the weight of the vehicle. We do have some areas in the fire department that do have limitations on weight. We do have some bridges that have limitations on weight, and how that applies to axle spacing and working with those jurisdictions, namely the county and the city, on making sure that we're cognizant of if we purchase something, like we go into it with eyes wide open, that like we can purchase that, but it can't go here or it can't get to this place, this direction, which is not uncommon in the fire service to have non-emergent response routes that might go differently because of weight. So they're very, very heavy, but they do vary in their ability to cross different arterials based on axle spacing and number of axles. And so that's definitely on our radar too. We want to try and purchase a piece of equipment that can go anywhere, right? From a weight perspective, right? We recognize that, there's private bridges but we don't want to be limited if we can avoid it on main arterials, right? And
So don't buy something that can't go over the Fox Island Bridge, for example.
That's yes.
Yes. Yeah.
That is an example of an arterial.
You're not saying it, I'll say it. So, yeah.
One thing I'd have a lot of interest in for kind of this phase two is you're getting more specific. I think we can both agree there's definitely like the tactical value is very obvious in a lot of places. I think it would be really interesting as much as possible to see if there's a potential to move WSRB rating in any parts of the city, because I think, to everyone in the fire service, it's a very clear choice.
Sure.
But I think for the public, that's something that you could make a very easy sell and is huge for the public, right? Especially, on the commercial side, but then, the majority of Gig Harbor is residential. So if you could bring that rating down 1 point in a lot of places and save people hundreds of dollars, that's going to win the most favor from the public. They're not as worried about the operational capacity, even though that's arguably more important. But so I'd appreciate that in the second phase.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
I was had the chance to read over it, and I was really impressed. You guys did a great job, and I mean, you took in all the concerns. I had to laugh when I'm thinking about the roundabouts, and if you're stationed at 51, then you got to come out of Kimball onto Pioneer, and I can just see that. But you took in all that. It's easier going from Kimball to Pioneer than Kimball to Soundview, probably. But anyway, you just took in all the small things, as well as the big picture. And the ladder truck, I know, has been a source of discussion for a long time, in regards to the need and what it can do for us. And that was before we have the facilities that we have now, before the box stores, before the hospitals, before Heron, that place. Just so many things that we have now that we didn't have back then when we had those concerns. So it is really, I think it is something that we really need for our community. It's not I mean, just looking at a fire in Tacoma right now that's going to where you would probably definitely need a ladder truck to assess that. So it's not if, it's when. So it is important. But again, the work that you guys put into this report, I was going through making a tick of all the things that you guys were rating the different trucks at. If I would have kept on going, I would have already saw that you already did that. The good thing was that my math figured out with your math on the numbers there. So you're doing good. But anyway, thanks to all of you guys for all the work and you didn't skip anything. You checked everything to be sure. And that is a thorough job. Thank you so much.
Commissioner, I just want to echo that and say thank you. You know, when I got here, it was an interview question from you and from the union. When are we getting a truck? Do we need a truck? And my entire time, I think Scott, the first thing he said to me is, we need a truck. And I said, what problem are we trying to solve? And then what tool do we need to solve that problem? And it is very thorough. They did an excellent job because I didn't want to be the chief that bought a truck that didn't work or that was just a parade apparatus, right? Because a lot of departments do that. They spend $2 million on a parade apparatus. So they've hit everything and answered every question that we have. And now we just need to figure out how we're going to fund it. So we'll work through that problem. And so Scott, thank you. Thank you for all your work and your effort and to the entire team. And just appreciate it. You did exactly what I asked for. I want to say thank you. And so now we can move forward.
I'd like to add one thing too. As being someone who's driven the ladder, I think if we decide to go down this road, I think the tiller is absolutely the right way to go. And I think we go all in and just do it right. Like absolutely, if we're going to spend the money, I think the difference, just literally do it right. And I think the asset to the other communities, Tacoma, I mean, there's such a lag with trucks coming, getting it set up, the tight spaces, the roads with no shoulders, the setting up, the short setting, the whole thing. I think the tiller, and I think just literally just, if we're going to do it, just figure out what this huge number is. And I think there's so much benefit to the community just to really do it right. That's my vote. Thank you.
Anybody else? You guys all good? Nick, thank you so much for your report, Nick, if you're done.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. Okay, that was new. Open public comment. If you have anything for this board, we'd ask that you state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. If you're online, please raise your hand. No report. Okay, thank you. Go to the order. Okay. Special interest upcoming events. I don't think there's anything current. Like I said, I don't think there's anything current. Is that before our next meeting? The day after? Okay, so we got a reminder on the day before for everybody. Okay, I'm trying to keep my calendar empty for that day. I have you down there. You're pretty important. So I'm working around it. All right. Good. Special interest upcoming events. That's it. Any other business to come before this board?